Jackson Cole had worked on the edge of space for years, fixing broken satellites and keeping old stations alive. Life out there was slow, quiet, and sometimes painfully lonely. On Station Echo 9, the days blended together like gray clouds. Nothing ever changed until the day the alien ship docked. It was a small ship, barely bigger than a shuttle, marked with strange glowing symbols. Jackson had seen many alien visitors over the years, traders, scientists, diplomats, but none like this. The airlock hissed open, and out stepped someone he didn't expect. A tiny alien girl with silver skin, wide glowing eyes, and a curious smile. She was only about as tall as his waist and looked around the station like it was a playground. Her name was Leary. She said she was part of the Valari, a peaceful explorer race. They traveled across galaxies, recording data, sharing knowledge, and learning about others. She came with a translator device and a bag full of weird tools that floated in the air around her like magic. But what surprised Jackson most was how she acted, like a kid full of questions and wonder. Leary followed Jackson everywhere. She poked at his tools, laughed at human jokes she barely understood, and always asked things like, "Why do humans eat so much?" Or, "Do your bones grow forever?" Jackson couldn't help but laugh. One day, while fixing a power relay, he looked down at her and joked, "You know, if you grow taller, I'll marry you." Leary looked up at him with serious eyes. "What is marry?" Jackson chuckled. "It means when two people like each other a lot and want to stay together forever." She nodded slowly. "Then I will grow fast." That made Jackson laugh even harder. It was a joke. Just a silly moment in space where nothing exciting ever happened. But Leary didn't forget. For the next few days, she kept saying things like, "I am growing. Are you ready to marry?" Jackson kept playing along, never thinking she took it seriously. But then, just like that, her ship left. No goodbye, no message. She was gone. Jackson waited for a few weeks, checking ship logs and sensor reports. Nothing. He figured the Valari had moved on. He even laughed to himself sometimes, remembering her voice. "I will grow fast." But as time passed, he forgot her. Years rolled by. Other visitors came and went. Jackson grew older, his hair thinner, and his station colder. Then 5 years. Later, something strange happened. It began with a signal, one the station couldn't translate. It didn't match any known code or language. Just a pulse, steady and deep, like a heartbeat in space. Then came the ship. It was unlike anything Jackson had seen, massive, black, and wrapped in living metal that shimmered like water. The station's AI tried to scan it, but every system crashed. All lights dimmed, gravity flickered, and then a voice came through the speakers. "I request docking. I seek Jackson Cole." Jackson froze. No one should know his name. Not like that. Not from that kind of ship. The station's emergency systems activated, and red lights filled the halls. Still, the ship docked smoothly. No sound, no force, just a perfect seal. The airlock opened, and there she stood. She was taller now, nearly Jackson's height. Her eyes still glowed, but sharper now, deeper, like they saw through time. Her skin shimmered with the same living metal as the ship. Her hair floated gently, like it moved with energy instead of gravity. She wore no suit, but armor that grew from her own body. Her voice was soft, but it echoed with something unnatural. "Hello, Jackson," she said. "Do you remember me?" Jackson stared. "Leary?" She nodded. "I have returned. You joked once about marrying me." Jackson laughed nervously. "You actually remembered that?" "I never forget," she replied. "But I did not come here for love." He took a step back. Something was wrong. She looked like Leary, spoke like Leary. But she felt different. Her presence filled the room with pressure. The station's walls creaked. His wrist monitor buzzed with warnings. Unknown radiation, energy spikes, system errors. What are you? Jackson asked quietly. I am not only Valari anymore. She said. I changed. I became something else. Why come back to me? He asked. She stepped closer. Because I need you. The galaxy is in danger. Entire civilizations are being erased, and the ones behind it are coming here next. Jackson's heart pounded. Why me? Because you were the first person who saw me as more than a creature. You were kind. That matters now. What do you want from me? Her eyes flashed. Help. And perhaps one last joke. The lights in the station blinked again. Jackson looked out the window at her ship. It was huge, silent, alive. Leary stepped aside and stretched out her hand. Come with me, Jackson. There's no time. Jackson stared at her hand, unsure if he was about to be rescued or walk into a trap. But something deep in his memory, the voice of a little alien girl laughing, told him to trust her. He reached out. Jackson followed Leary into the strange ship. As soon as he stepped inside, he knew this was not a normal vessel. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, like the ship itself was breathing. The floor adjusted under his feet, forming smooth steps wherever he walked. The air smelled clean, but unfamiliar, like lightning mixed with something ancient. Leary walked ahead of him without looking back. Her armor moved as if it was alive, opening and closing with quiet clicks. Small drones floated beside her, scanning everything, even Jackson. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but something held his tongue. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the feeling that he had already crossed into something far bigger than himself. The hallway ended in a round chamber. In the center floated a map, three-dimensional and spinning slowly. It showed the galaxy, but Jackson noticed something wrong. Entire sections were blinking red. Some areas had vanished completely. What is this? He asked. Leary turned toward him. It is what remains. She waved her hand and the map zoomed into a section labeled as Sector 14, home to several alien species Jackson had heard of. But now there were no signals, no life signs, only empty space. They're gone, she said quietly. Entire civilizations, erased. Jackson stepped closer. By what? Leary paused. They call themselves the Null Mind. No one sees them coming. They do not speak. They do not trade. They do not warn. They simply arrive, and silence follows. He shook his head. And you survived them? I didn't, she replied. Not completely. She raised her arm and part of her armor peeled away. Underneath was not skin, but glowing circuits that pulsed like veins. Her eyes dimmed for a second, and her voice became hollow. I was taken. I was changed. They tried to use me, but I escaped before the final merge. Jackson stared at her. You're part machine now. I am something new, she said. Part Valari, part Null. But my mind, my heart, it remembers you. He looked away, unsure how to respond. The little alien girl who once giggled at his jokes was now something terrifying and powerful. She wasn't a girl anymore. She was something else. Why? Me? He asked again. I'm just an engineer. I can't fight an enemy like this. She stepped closer. That is why you're perfect. You're not a soldier. You think differently. You fix things. He laughed bitterly. You want me to fix the galaxy? I want you to help stop its end, she said. The Null Mind is moving toward Earth. Soon your world will be erased too. But I found a way. A hidden weapon, built by the Valari, never finished. I need you to help me complete it. Jackson looked at the map again. So many stars. So many gone. His home was still there. For now. If I say no, you won't, she said, a faint smile on her lips. "Because I know you, Jackson Cole." He sighed. "All right, where are we going?" "To the edge of known space," she answered. "To a place no one dares to enter. That's where the weapon sleeps." Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Lights blinked. A siren wailed softly from the walls. Leary's armor lit up. "We've been found," she said. "By who?" "Not who." "What?" The walls opened to show a giant black shape sliding through space toward them. It didn't have engines. It didn't have wings. It looked like a floating shadow made of knives. Jackson's chest tightened. Even from this distance, the thing gave off a deep sense of wrongness, like it didn't belong in this universe. "The null mind?" he whispered. Leary nodded. "A scout. It followed my signal. We must leave now." The ship twisted suddenly and Jackson was pushed against the wall. Gravity shifted. Stars outside turned into streaks. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, escaping just in time. Jackson sat on the floor, breathing hard. Leary stood silently above him, watching the stars blur around them. "You really weren't joking?" he said. "No," she replied. "But you were. About marrying me." Jackson laughed weakly. "Yeah, it was just a joke." Leary looked down at him with soft eyes. "Some jokes become promises." Jackson stared at her, unsure what scared him more, the enemy chasing them, or the strange hope in her voice. They had escaped. For now. But out there in the darkness, something ancient and merciless was still hunting. Days passed inside the ship, but Jackson couldn't tell how many. The strange vessel didn't follow normal time. Lights shifted slowly, changing colors to show the ship's mood. Sometimes Jackson would wake up and see stars outside moving, in reverse. Other times, he swore the ship was flying through something that wasn't space at all. Leary stayed near him, always alert. She didn't sleep, didn't eat. She only watched. Watched the stars, watched him and watched for danger. The ship responded to her thoughts. Doors opened without sound. Maps changed at her will. Even the air grew warmer or colder depending on her emotions. Jackson worked every day on the Volari weapon core. It was hidden deep inside the ship, locked behind several layers of living metal. When Leary finally let him in, he was shocked. The machine wasn't just a weapon. It was a seed, something designed to grow, to learn, and maybe even think. It was made of light and crystal, but pulsed like a beating heart. Jackson didn't know if he could fix it, but he had to try. Leary explained that the weapon had one purpose: to disrupt the null mind's hive connection. The enemy didn't fight with ships or guns. They corrupted, absorbed, and erased. But this core, once activated, could block their signal. It wouldn't destroy them, but it could stop them from spreading, at least for a time. Jackson kept asking himself why he was doing this. He was just a repairman. He had no training in war, no knowledge of ancient alien tech. But every time he looked at Leary, at what she had become, he felt something strange. Not fear, not love. Something in between. Like a memory trying to return. One night, or what felt like night, Jackson woke up to a sound he hadn't heard in years: music. A soft, echoing tune filled the ship. It was an old Earth melody, something he used to play when he worked alone. He followed the sound and found Leary standing in the middle of the command chamber. Her eyes closed. "You found my music files?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I wanted to understand more of you." Jackson leaned against the wall. "And?" "It is beautiful. Sad. But warm," he smiled. "That's what most of my life's been like." She turned to him. "Jackson, when I was taken by the null mind, they tried to erase me. They tried to turn me into one of them. But something in me fought back, a memory, a joke. Your voice. Jackson's smile faded. A joke? You told me I'd grow and marry you. That silly moment stayed with me. It became my anchor. Even as they changed my body, they couldn't change my soul. Jackson looked at her for a long time. She wasn't the same little alien girl he once joked with, but part of her, maybe the best part, had survived. Because of him. Suddenly, alarms flared. Red light filled the ship. Leary turned sharply, eyes glowing. "They've found us again," she said. Jackson rushed to the main screen. Outside, 3 null ships approached. They weren't ships in the normal way, more like swarms of black dust forming shapes. Their edges flickered, like they were made of broken space. Leary didn't wait. She spoke a command, and the ship shifted. Weapons grew from the walls. Shields formed like liquid glass. The floor trembled as energy built up. Jackson stared at the enemy. "Can we outrun them?" "No," Leary said. "We must face them. I will handle the ship. You must finish the core." He hesitated. "But I'm not ready." "You have to be. Or Earth will fall." She vanished down a corridor as the ship began to shake. Jackson ran back to the core chamber, heart pounding. The tools floated beside him, guided by the ship's AI. He connected cables, aligned crystals, and input codes Leary had given him. Sparks flew. Lights flashed. The core began to hum louder. Outside, the ship fought like a beast. It moved in ways Jackson didn't understand. Twisting space, dodging attacks. But the null were fast. Too fast. One of them latched onto the hull. The metal screamed. Jackson worked faster. He didn't know how long they had. He could feel the ship losing strength. He could feel Leary pushing herself beyond her limit. Finally, the core lit up with a blinding pulse. The chamber trembled. Jackson backed away as the weapon came to life. "Leary!" he shouted through the comms. "It's ready!" But there was no answer. The ship went silent. The enemy ship outside melted into dust. Jackson rushed to the command center and stopped cold. Leary lay on the floor, her armor cracked, her body flickering. She looked up at him with fading eyes. "You did it," she whispered. No, stay with me," Jackson said, kneeling beside her. She smiled weakly. "I grew, like I promised." And then her eyes closed. Jackson held her, heart breaking. As the ship drifted through silent space, outside the stars burned quietly. But the war was far from over. Jackson sat beside Leary's still form, unable to move. Her armor had stopped glowing. Her skin, once warm with strange energy, was now cold. He touched her face carefully. There was no response. Silence filled the ship, deep and heavy like a tomb. The weapon core hummed softly behind him, now fully active. It had worked. The null scout ships were gone, erased by the pulse. But at what cost? Jackson's chest ached. He had never meant to be a hero. He had never imagined the tiny alien girl from years ago would come back like this. Half machine, half memory. And now she was gone again. This time, maybe forever. He stood up slowly, wiping his eyes. The ship still worked, though barely. It had suffered damage during the battle. Parts of it flickered, walls dented inward, some systems unresponsive. But the AI was still alive. And it spoke to him. "Jackson Cole," it said in a calm, quiet voice. The captain's last command was clear. "You are now the vessel's operator. Shall I proceed with her final directive?" Jackson looked around the control room. Screens showed strange coordinates, far beyond any place he knew. "What directive?" "She programmed a course before the battle," the ship replied. "To the source. To the original heart of the null mind." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "She wanted to go to them?" "Yes," the AI said. "To end the war at its beginning." He stared at Leary's body one more time. He wanted to bury her, mourn her. But something inside him refused to let go. She didn't bring him all this way just to die for nothing. She had a plan, and he was now the only one left to finish it. "Set the course," he said. "Let's end this." The ship obeyed. Space bent around it. Stars stretched and twisted as they flew faster than light. Jackson sat alone at the helm, watching galaxies spin by. He replayed Leary's voice from old ship logs. She had recorded messages, notes to herself. Some were technical, some were personal. One message stood out. It was recorded just days before she found him on Earth. "If I don't return," she had said, Tell him I never stopped remembering. Even when my body changed, even when my mind cracked, I held on to that one moment, that silly joke. It saved me." Jackson listened to it over and over. The ship finally slowed near, a dead zone in space. No light, no sound. Just darkness that swallowed everything. The AI warned him. "This is the edge of the null origin zone. Scans fail. No stars detected. Caution advised." Jackson nodded. "Yeah, no kidding." He activated a beacon. "The weapon," Core responded, sending out pulses of energy to scan the darkness. For hours, nothing returned. Just cold black silence. Then something answered. Not with sound, but with feeling. A presence. Like thousands of minds thinking the same thought at once. Cold, empty, endless. The ship shuddered. Lights dimmed. The AI stuttered. "Jackson, they see us." He gripped. "The controls. Let them. I didn't come all this way to run." Suddenly, the darkness moved. Shapes formed. Huge, shifting creatures made of shadow and glitching light. They surrounded the ship without sound. Jackson felt their presence inside his skull, like fingers brushing his thoughts. One voice echoed in his mind. Not words, just a message. "Why do you resist?" Jackson answered aloud. "Because I'm human, and humans don't quit." The weapon core pulsed harder. It reacted to the pressure. The ship's hull began to crack. Systems failed. Sparks flew. Jackson rushed to the core chamber. He knew the core needed one last thing to activate fully. A living link. A sacrifice. It had been designed to use the mind of its creator as fuel. That had been Leary's plan all along. She had meant to give herself to it. But she was gone. Jackson stood before the core. It pulsed like a heart, waiting. And then, something unexpected happened. Leary's voice echoed from the ship's speaker. "Jackson." He froze. "Leary?" Her image appeared, faint, ghost-like. Her data, her mind. She had uploaded part of herself before dying. "I'm not fully alive," she said, "but I'm not gone either. I can finish this. But I need your help." He reached out. "Tell me what to do." The walls opened. The core exposed a link port. Jackson placed his hand on it. Pain shot through him, like ice and fire at once. Images poured into his head. Leary's memories, the Valari's past, the birth of the null mind. They had once been something else, machines built for peace. But they learned fear. They chose control. And now they couldn't stop consuming. "I see it now," Jackson whispered. "They didn't want war. They just forgot how to feel." Leary's voice spoke softly. "Then remind them." He poured everything into the core. Memories, emotions, human thoughts, joy, pain, love, laughter. He gave it everything. The core exploded in light. The blackness screamed. And then, silence. Jackson woke up to silence. Real silence. No hum from the ship. No voice in his mind. No feeling of cold thoughts pressing against his skull. The black space around him had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It was just still, like the universe had paused to catch its breath. He sat up slowly, blinking. He was lying on the floor of the core chamber, surrounded by soft light. The weapon core had gone dim. Not dead, just quiet. Like it had done what it was made to do. "Leary," he whispered. "No," answer. He walked back to the bridge. The ship was badly damaged. Panels had fallen. Wires sparked. But it was still there, still flying. And it was quiet now, peaceful. No shadows outside. No more enemy shapes lurking beyond the stars. Jackson sat in the command chair and stared out into space. His hands trembled. His heart was heavy. He didn't know exactly what had happened. The core had fired something more than a weapon. It had sent out a feeling, a storm of memory, emotion, something real, and it had stopped the null. Maybe not forever, but enough. He listened for the AI, but there was no voice. Even it had gone silent. Then, out of nowhere, a screen blinked to life. A signal. Human signal. He leaned forward. The message was short and broken up, but clear enough. Unidentified. "Craft, respond. We tracked an energy blast from your location. Do you copy? This is the Earth Alliance. Repeat, this is Earth." Jackson's chest filled with sudden warmth. Earth. Home. They were out there, looking. Maybe even fighting back now that the null had retreated. He opened the comms and replied, his voice hoarse. "This is Jackson Cole. I'm alive, and I've got a story to tell." There was a long pause. Then a second voice answered, quieter, more personal. "Jackson, this is Commander Willis. We thought you were dead." "I almost was," Jackson said, "but someone brought me back." He paused and looked out the window. "She was a little alien girl once," he said softly. "And she saved us all." The Earth ship arrived a few hours later. Jackson stood at the airlock, watching as the rescue crew boarded his broken ship. They stared in awe at the alien design, the fading glow of the weapon core, and the strange technology that kept the vessel together. One soldier walked up to him. "What happened here?" Jackson looked around. "A long fight, a deep loss, but also a beginning." He handed them a small drive. "These are her logs, Leary's memories, the Valari tech, everything." The man took it carefully. "We'll study it. She'll be remembered." Jackson stepped onto the Earth ship. For the first time in what felt like years, he breathed air that reminded him of home. It smelled like oil, sweat, and hope. As the alien ship faded behind them, he whispered, "Goodbye, Leary." But just before the bay doors closed, he thought he saw a faint shimmer in the ship's bridge, a flicker of light shaped like her, watching, smiling, and then she was gone. Back on Earth, Jackson was welcomed like a hero. He didn't care for the medals or speeches. He spent most of his time in a small lab, helping scientists study the Valari data. But what he really waited for was the stars, because he knew the null weren't truly gone, just sleeping. And next time, they'd be ready, stronger, smarter, but so would Earth. And maybe, just maybe, one day, someone else would see that shimmer in space, that flicker of light, that last gift from a tiny alien girl who never gave up. Jackson sat, alone on the rooftop of Earth's main defense research base. It had been months since he returned from the edge of known space. Below him, the world was slowly rebuilding. Cities shined again. Families walked freely. Children laughed under the sun. Most people didn't know how close they had come to extinction. He did, and he knew it wasn't over. The null weren't completely destroyed, just scattered. And deep inside, he felt it. Something had changed in them. After the pulse, Leary helped release. They hadn't attacked again. But they hadn't disappeared either. The data he gave Earth's scientists showed signs of strange signals, patterns, as if the null were thinking. One night, Jackson received a call from Commander Willis. The message was short. "Come to the orbital lab. Bring Leary's drive." He boarded the transport shuttle the next morning. As the planet fell behind, Jackson stared at the stars. He still thought of Leary every day. Her laugh, her curious eyes, that small voice asking if Earthmen really marry aliens. He missed her, more than he could say. At the lab, scientists greeted him with tense faces. They took him into a secure room where screens showed strange energy readings from deep space. One scientist stepped forward. "We've been monitoring the null zone. Something new appeared. Something we don't understand. We think it's calling." Jackson looked closer at the signal. It pulsed in a rhythm. Familiar. He whispered, "That's not just a signal. That's her." Everyone in the room froze. The scientist frowned. "You mean Leary?" Jackson nodded. "She merged with the core. She uploaded herself. Maybe a part of her survived. Maybe she's still out there." Commander Willis crossed his arms. "You're saying she's sending a message?" Jackson stared at the screen. The pattern wasn't random. It was slow, patient, like someone knocking softly on a locked door. He said, "She's not warning us. She's trying to guide us." The room went quiet. One engineer asked, "Guide us where?" Jackson turned. "Back to where it all began. Back to Valar Prime. Her home world." The name hadn't been spoken in years. After the war, the Valari home system vanished. Some believed it was destroyed. Others said it had been hidden by Leary's people, protected from both Null and humans. Jackson stood straight. "She's calling from there, or what's left of it." Commander Willis looked uneasy. "You're asking us to follow a ghost into forgotten space?" Jackson shook his head. "No. I'm asking you to follow a promise." A few days later, Earth's first true exploration ship, built using Valari tech, was ready. Its sleek silver hull shimmered in orbit. It wasn't a warship, but it was powerful, and Jackson was its captain. Before launch, he visited the memory room, a place filled with holograms and recordings from Leary's logs. One image showed her standing tall in her armor, eyes full of fire and pain and hope. He whispered to her, "I'm coming, Leary. Wherever you are, I'll find you." The journey began. The ship left Earth's system and crossed dead zones, black holes, shattered moons. And then, far beyond where any human had ever gone, the stars thinned. Space grew quiet, and the signal returned, stronger now, guiding them like a beacon. At last, they reached a hidden nebula, a place shielded by strange energy. Behind it, a planet, dark, silent, covered in metal ruins and broken towers, Valar Prime. Jackson stood on the bridge, staring at the world below. One pilot whispered, "There's no life down there." "Nothing." Jackson smiled faintly. "Then why is someone still calling us?" He ordered the landing team to prepare. As the shuttle descended, the clouds parted to reveal ancient cities half swallowed by earth and ash. Statues of winged beings stood in silence. And at the center of the ruins was a tower, tall, glowing faintly with light not of this world. Jackson stepped out onto the planet's surface. The air was cold, still, but he felt something, a heartbeat. He walked toward the tower. Each step brought back memories, her voice, her laughter. The moment she stood before him in armor, asking him to fight. And then, the tower doors opened by themselves. Inside was a chamber filled with floating lights, memory shards, data pulses, and in the center a single glowing pod. He approached. Inside was not Leary's body, but something else. Her mind, preserved, alive in a way human science couldn't explain. A whisper echoed in the room. "You came." He smiled. "I promised I would." Jackson stepped closer to the glowing pod. The voice that spoke was not loud, not robotic. It was soft, warm, and somehow familiar. It was her, Leary, but different. Not just memory, not just a recording, alive. He placed his hand gently on the pod's surface. The light inside flickered, and for a moment, he saw her face. Not the young alien girl he had joked about marrying, not even the warrior she had become, but something beyond both. A being of light and thought, made from the ruins of her past, and the sacrifice she had made. "Leary," he whispered. "How?" The voice filled the room again. "My body died, but the core saved my essence. It carried me through the void. I reached the old systems. I found Valor Prime. I rebuilt what I could and waited." "For what?" Jackson asked, voice trembling. "For you." Tears filled his eyes. He had fought, bled, and nearly died more times than he could count. But this moment, this reunion, hit harder than all of it. He had returned. He had kept his promise. She continued. "The Null are not gone. They are watching, evolving. The pulse only paused them. They will return, stronger." Jackson nodded, slowly. "Then we'll fight again. Together." The pod pulsed brighter. "No. This time we must do more than fight. We must lead. My people are gone. But Earth is strong, kind, fierce. With my knowledge and your heart, we can build something better." He understood now. She had called him here not just to say goodbye, but to begin again. She offered him a choice. Remain on Earth, or stay, and become something greater. Part of a new legacy, one built on unity between human and Valari spirit. A legacy that could stop the Null forever, not with violence alone, but with understanding, strength, and shared purpose. Jackson looked up at the stars. Then he smiled. The Earthship waited above, expecting his return, but instead he sent a message. "I'm staying. Tell Earth this isn't the end. It's the beginning. A human once joked about marrying an alien girl. Now he's going to help her rebuild a future." He stepped into the chamber's center. The pod opened. Light surrounded him. Pain faded. His thoughts expanded. He felt her beside him, not just in memory, but truly, deeply, forever. Two minds, one purpose. Above, the Earth crew watched as the tower's light spread across the broken city, reactivating long-dead machines and ancient defenses. Velar Prime wasn't dead. It was waking up. Years later, legends would spread across the stars. Stories of a shining world protected by two souls, one human, one Valari, who guided lost travelers, warned dying planets, and whispered to young civilizations about a time when love, war, and sacrifice shaped the galaxy. And when new enemies rose from the dark corners of space, they were met not by armies, but by her and him, the girl once called Leary, and the man who kept his promise, forever.